Aditya. And just to give you a little bit of brief about me, I founded the Aeroganic Farms Private Limited in 2018. So what we basically do at Aeroganic Farms is we do farm setups and controlled environment agriculture setups for people who are interested in like the future of farming. In addition to this, we also work with the ICAR and we work with several scientists there who want us to design a custom setup for whatever crops they are experimenting on. And these crops are like medicinal crops to regular vegetative crops to your leafy greens to potatoes. So all these varieties before when they test out their seeds and bring it to the market, the hybrid varieties I'm talking about. So they require like special controlled environments where they can test the viability and the yield that that particular hybrid strain would provide. So I'll talk about hydroponics from a very beginner perspective so that like everyone can understand, and then we will also cover what are the cost factors involved if one wishes to implement this sort of a farming practice in their land on their land. So to begin with, basically hydroponics is growing crops without actually growing them in soil. So as you can see from this equation of photosynthesis, that there is no element of soil in this. Like a plant produces food through water, sunlight, carbon dioxide, and the nutrients that the roots uptake from the soil. So in hydroponics, instead of soil, what we give the plant is a nutrient-rich solution, which is basically several salts ranging from nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium to like your secondary salts and micronutrients. So what it does is it enables the plant to absorb these nutrients in a much more efficient manner. You must have read the roots grow deeper and they spread out in search of water and nutrients. But once the nutrients and water is provided to those roots at easy less at a lesser depth, then these plants tend to grow much faster, and the final yield is also more nutritious because the roots aren't like spending time and energy looking for these two elements, which is water and nutrients. So that is the basics of hydroponics. There are multiple ways to implement it. There's like multiple setups from basic Dutch bucket setups to nutrient film technology setup to aeroponic setups. All of these setups like are from vary in like the complexity in which they're implemented. So and the cost factor is always also there. Plus each method is suited for a particular variety of crop. So for example, if I talk about the basic types of systems, these are the types of systems that we commonly use in hydroponics, commercially also, and people who tend to grow their own vegetables at home. So for someone who's trying to grow vegetables at home in their kitchen garden, the most common method is like a wick method, which is the first picture on the top left that you see. So there's basically a growing medium in which the plant is placed. This growing medium can be soil also, but since we're talking about hydroponics right now, the medium for this sort of method, we use clay balls and a mixture of coco peat. So coco peat is like a commonly available substrate which is made out of waste coconut shells, and it is washed in it is pH balanced and EC balanced, so that any nutrient that you add to the substrate is absorbed by the plant. These clay balls basically offer some bit of porousness and space for the roots to grow in. So we use like a 50 to 50, 50% to 50% ratio between clay balls and coco peat. So in this method, there's a common nutrient tank where water is placed and nutrients are added into this water solution. And there's like you can use a cotton cloth or a nylon cloth and place it somewhere around the roots so that whenever roots require or whenever the moisture drops down, there's a wicking action that supplements the moisture level around the root zone. And along with the water, the nutrients are also pulled up. Then there's this water culture method. It is more of a commercial way to grow leafy greens primarily. So in this, there's like a raft sort of a thing, like a styrofoam sheet, which is placed. I'll be going through the pictures also, like once we're done with this. Uh, so there's a styrofoam sheet which has holes in the sheet itself, and planters are placed in those holes. The roots are dipping in the water solution, which is enriched with nutrients. Obviously, we'll talk about nutrients also. And this is something which enables you to keep a very high density of crops next to each other. Say for example, if you're growing spinach in soil, then you need to maintain at least like a 6 inch distance between two crops because the roots need space and they try to like overlap and compete for nutrients. So you need to maintain at least 6 inches. But in case of this water culture method, you can place these two plants like 1 to 2 inches apart, as long as the canopy, the top part is not touching each other. Even if it is touching, it is not an issue as such because there's no case of pollination in leafy greens. So the roots they're like submerged into the nutrient solution and they have ready access of water and nutrients. So the turnaround cycle of these crops is also much faster. So we're talking like say from 2 to 3 months in soil to like 30 to 45 days in a hydroponic growing medium. The method that we employ at Aeroganic Farms right now is the nutrient film technique, in which you might have seen online as well that there's like channels made out of UPVC plastic. They are basically called gullies or nutrient film channels. The dimension of these channels is like approximately 100 mm to 50 mm, 100 mm by 50 mm. And uh, plants are placed at a distance of 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches. And you can use it in a polyhouse sort of an environment or even in an indoor growing space with LED grow lights. So it is a versatile method, and the main advantage of this method is that all the water that we use for irrigation is actually recycled. So if you see the fourth picture, which is the second picture on the right side, so these channels are sloped at an angle so that you feed water from one end, and with the help of gravity, the water flows down to the other end and goes back into the nutrient chamber. So there's very less wastage of water, and I mean it is estimated about 80% of the water that you use in regular farming, you save about 80% of that when you come to nutrient film techniques. The most advanced method, like which is also like something that NASA utilizes in their spaceships, is the aeroponic growing method. So in aeroponic growing method, the water and the nutrient solution is misted onto the roots of the plants. And the size of the mist is also very critical because the smaller the size, the faster it is for these roots to take up nutrients. So if we talk and compare the yield cycles in yield and the timeline in production, aeroponic cultivation offers best of both the worlds. So you get like less crop cycle time and a higher yield when you use a efficient way of delivering these water and nutrients to the crops. So we'll go into detail with this also. So there's pros and cons of both. So you have like a slower growth rate compared to NFT or aeroponic setup in case of a wicking system. But it's very cost effective and it can be implemented at your home level. So it's a very common thing that you can use even for like house plants. Like you can have a uh, separate water bottle connected to your house plant. So in case you leave the home for like a week or 10 days, you can always have something supplementing the water requirements of the plants. So, and the other problem with this is that there's no nutrient circulation. So, in terms of saving water, there is not much of a difference if you were to water the plant from top, but it offers some bit of like, control in terms of the cycling, the water cycle of the plant. The next thing is your deep water culture, as I discussed. It's like a floating raft sort of a thing, which is placed on top of a nutrient solution, and the roots are submerged into the nutrient solution. And air pump is essential because you need to reoxygenate the water. If you do not have an access to an air pump, we also sometimes use hydrogen peroxide, which is basically hydrogen and oxygen. So the added hydrogen peroxide offers oxygen to the plant. You can read the pros and cons. It's not a very difficult setup. But the only issue with this is like when the temperature rises, you have some issues with the fungus and other issues that might come due to the warmth of the water. So you need to maintain this chamber at a temperature of about 18 to 23 degrees Celsius in order to not get into those issues. Then there's this ebb and flow method, which again, like you fill the whole area where the plants are potted with water and let it drain out over time. And once the water is depleted, then you use a pump again to like replicate this nutrient solution. It is not very commonly practiced, but then again, like this is like a initial form of hydroponics that was practiced in the olden days. Like for example, in the Babylonian farms of Egypt, this is what they usually did. They flooded the whole area, and once the water was drained out, then they would again flood the area with like a nutrient rich solution. And in this case, like the soil quality obviously does not matter. We're not talking soil in any of these setups. So all these mediums are inert mediums. They do not have any nutritional like sort of composition by itself. They don't offer like any nutrients to the plant. All the nutrition comes from the salts dissolved in the water. Uh, this is the drip system in which like there's a dripper placed next to each planter. This is very commonly used in commercial hydroponic farms, which are practicing Dutch bucket farming or grow bag farming. There is no recirculation. There could be recirculation in this if you're using Dutch buckets, but in case of grow bags, there is no recirculation. So then again, the point of like water conservation, from 80%, obviously you won't be saving 80% water as in the case of nutrient film technique, but you still get like a lot more savings in terms of water that you use because you're not spreading water around and there's no like losses in what in terms of like evaporation. So you're basically providing these nutrient rich solution to the plants as and when required. So all these water pumps that I'm talking about are generally connected to a timer. So based on the weather patterns and based on how which geographic location you are in, You can always sort of take a note of like how long it takes for the surface, the water to like dry off from the surface, so that you can replenish it or time it based on whenever the plant would require additional water supplements. So the growing mediums that we use in these sort of setups are clay balls, coco peat, vermiculite, or rock wool. Depending on the availability, you can choose anything because they're just there to support the plant. They don't offer any nutritional advantage as such. Nutrient film we've already discussed. I'll be showing pictures of this too. And aeroponics as well. This is basically uh, the most advanced form of growing crops. And in this method, like the nozzles, they sort of produce a very fine mist, and like the particle size is somewhere around 0.2 to 0.3 micron, so that it is readily taken up by the roots. So these are the different growing mediums. The top one is clay balls, light expanded clay aggregates. So it's basically clay only, which is baked. Then you have coco peat, and then you have perlite. So coconut coir is also readily available these days. So the advantage with this is that it retains moisture for a longer time compared to your perlite or leca balls. So that is the advantage. So if you use a combination of leca and perlite or coconut coir, then you're getting good aeration from the clay balls, and at the same time you're getting a good moisture holding capacity from the coconut coir. Rock wool is also something which is used. It's even used in for insulation purposes. So, but the thing with these cubes is that they tend to be a little expensive compared to leca or coconut coir. Oasis tube is like a modern day invention. So it is basically foam, and it is highly breathable, and it can hold a lot of water and moisture. So all seeds initially are germinated or put inside these holes, and this is from here the germination process starts, and you can just pluck out these cubes from there's a whole sheet of about 144 cubes when you purchase it. So you can take out one cube or like as many cubes as you want, and then start placing it into net cups that would eventually go into your NFT system or a Dutch bucket system. So, plant nutrition, what we've been talking about, since we do not have any soil component in this, you need to take care of two elements. One is TDS or EC, they're interchangeable terms. TDS stands for total dissolved salts. And the other thing you need to take care of is the pH level, if the water is acidic or basic. In general, water that is given to plants is supposed to be a little acidic because that promotes nutrition absorption by the plants in comparison to human blood, which is like slightly basic in nature. So the pH we try to maintain is around 5.5 to 7 in all, or 7.5 in all growing all of these growing methods. And you will see why. So these are like the primary, secondary, and micronutrients that are required by plants to grow. So your NPK are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium are primary. Secondary are magnesium, sulfur, calcium. Micronutrients are boron, chlorine, manganese, iron, nickel, copper, zinc, and molybdenum. So, and with the whenever you see a plant, you can easily make out if the plant is deficient in any particular nutrient, and the plant gives out symptoms, just like the human body does. The plant also gives out symptoms of, okay, it is lacking this element. So once you are aware of that, you can easily, supplement it and have a better growth at your farm. So this is what it looks like. So all these deficiencies will have a different signature that you can see from the canopy. And once you are able to identify it, then you can always take a preventive action. Uh, and this also sort of helps you in trying to understand what sort of nutrients or what sort of fertilizers you need to purchase from the market. Um, so, for example, your leafy greens, if you're growing palak or kale or lettuce, then these crops do not require a lot of potassium as such, because the green color is primarily because of the nitrogen rich solution that we provide to it. So, if you're aware what crop you're growing, then you don't need to provide excess of one particular fertilizer just because the standard thing comes as like uh, a package thing comes with like all of these nutrients. But you can focus on only some particular salts so that you're not like spending extra in terms of fertilizers. So what we use at our hydroponic farm is like, a three-part solution. The grow nutrients, the bloom nutrients, which are only used for your fruiting crops like tomatoes, bell peppers, strawberries. And micronutrients are basically required in trace quantities in both these leafy greens as well as fruiting crops. So different manufacturers have like a different guideline as to how many mLs per liter you need to mix to achieve a certain concentration of TDS. And there's like a chart that we'll be going through, which talks about what is the requirement of various crops in terms of pH, and ppm is basically a unit of TDS, and EC stands for electrical conductivity. So, like, since you know that we are mixing salts in water, so there will be some bit of conductivity between the positive and the negative nodes. So, that helps us calculate the concentration of various salts. So, this is like a standard chart, but obviously, this will vary from manufacturer to manufacturer in terms of what strength of salts they're providing. So this is just like thumb rule sort of a thing. But in reality, you will always have to keep an eye on how the plant is responding to whatever nutrients you're providing it. So this will go back to what is the importance of correct pH. So if you can see from this scale, so most of the nutrients have a very high absorption rate between pH 5.5 and 7.5. And that is why we try to maintain this, because you could be feeding nutrients, excess nutrients even to your system. But since the pH is not correct, the nutrients will not get absorbed. So that is why, you need to monitor these crops at least twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening, to keep a track of how much water is being absorbed. And obviously, when the water gets absorbed, some bit of nutrients also get absorbed, and that changes the pH level as well inside the system. In general, like hydroponics or any controlled environment agriculture, be it a polyhouse or a greenhouse or like just a shade net growing space, there's very little sort of pest infestation, because you're not using soil, but still there are certain airborne elements that can, sort of attack the canopy, the leaf part of the plant. So mealybugs, spiders, thrips, aphids, and moles. So these are the common things. There's obviously a lot of insecticides that are available in the market to treat each and every symptom. But at the end of it, there's always natural and organic methods to control this, and obviously prevention is better than cure. Um, the most effective method that we have found is hydrogen peroxide mixed with silver nanoparticles sprayed onto the surface of the leaves. This is an antibacterial, antifungal, and it's good effective against like a lot of viral infections as well. So this is not this does not come under any sort of insecticides, but it is something that we even use to clean our wounds. Peroxide we use to clean our wounds, but the nanosilver in these in hydrogen peroxide just enables the solution to get stuck onto the surface for a longer period, so it doesn't evaporate so easily, and it is able to combat whatever pests are like affecting the crop. So in against spiders and these mealybugs, which are like white colored white dots that you might see, they tend to subside after like one or two rounds of sprays of hydrogen peroxide with nanosilver. Then again, there's always keeping the environment clean, whatever growing space you have, having the right temperature and humidity inside that area, so that like excess moisture, obviously with heat, will produce a lot of bacterial and fungal infections. So the key is to keep the environment inside within a certain range so that this does not happen. Uh, then again, the water temperature in case of hydroponics is very critical. The ideal range is between 18 to 23. Anything over 23 will enable more microbial growth, and anything lower than 18 will tend to give the plant a cold shock. So it might have like a stunted growth if the water or the nutrient solution is cold. So, hydroponics, obviously can be practiced inside a closed space, which has no sunlight by using LED grow lights. These LED grow lights are obviously like customized to provide a certain spectrum. Primarily the red and the blue region is what we talk about when we talk about plant growth. There's a lot of bands of wavelength which are not required as such by the plants. For example, the ultraviolet and the infrared regions of the light spectrum are not utilized by the plant for its growth. Um, Special lighting can always be introduced, and it's good for areas that do not experience sunshine. In India, obviously, yes, there's all regions are blessed with good sunshine, but there's areas which do not have which have a very cold climate, or which do not have good number of sunlit days. So for there, you can sort of explore these options of using indoor LED grow lights. Temperature control obviously is like a key, even if you are growing inside a polyhouse. In Indian conditions, ideally the polyhouses were designed for cold climate regions, but in India we have adapted them to by installing fan and pad and cooling systems and misting systems, so that we can use the benefits of a controlled environment, and also sort of maintain the temperature in the right at the right levels, and get a better yield. So obviously, like there's a lot of other factors which come into play when you're trying to set up a commercial farm. But the best sort of way to do it in India would be to have like a temperature controlled polyhouse that enables you to grow 365 days. And instead of going for LED lighting, you should be able to utilize natural lighting that is available. So, so I was talking about the different uh, wavelengths that the plant absorbs. So the maximum is absorbed around the blue region and the red region. And anything below like 380 nanometer and anything over 700, 710 nanometer is something which we do not require. And we are aware that anything over 700, which is infrared, also tends to heat up the space. So in modern day polyhouses, the sheets are designed in a way to reflect these particular wavelengths, so that you're only getting the right wavelength for the plant which is required for it to grow. So, I mean, these are the various temperature ranges and the optimum temperature ranges for various crops. And inside these polyhouse systems, uh, we try to incorporate like misting systems, circulation fans, and then these exhaust fans that keep bringing in fresh air. So, at night, there's a lot of CO2 concentration goes up inside a polyhouse. So that needs to be eliminated so that the growing space is more comfortable for people working inside. And besides that, they also help in reducing the temperature, which can get pretty hot if you're talking about North India. Maybe like, in regions like Bangalore or somewhere, any place which is over the altitude of about 1200 feet, you can opt for a naturally ventilated polyhouse because the temperatures will not be going above 30 degrees Celsius. But anything which is like lower than that altitude or in a latitude location where temperatures tend to reach about 40 degrees, then it becomes essential to have these exhaust fans alongside misting systems, and the water temperature of the growing medium as well needs to be controlled, so that it doesn't get too hot for the root zone. Otherwise, it will result in root rot and other fungus related problems. So, these are the common problems that we encounter: pests and nutrition is too much or too little. The growing environment can get too hot or too cold depending on the weather. Like in Delhi, in winters it gets too cold, and in summers it gets too hot. Genetic problems are rare because it depends on the seed. The seeds that are used are the same seeds that you would use in normal geoponics or soil-based farming. So there is no difference in that. Um, So in case of nutrient deficiency, what we try to do is like, we try to keep a log of whatever we have, like, sort of fed the system. And there's like every week, the nutrient chamber is cleaned and filled with fresh water. Alongside, like, there's like a visual inspection which tells like, okay, if the plants are doing well or not. 90% of the cases this does not happen in a commercial sort of a setup, because nowadays you have automated machines which are called fertigation machines. They mix nutrients in a particular ratio as per, like, our desire, like we can program that. And based on the LPH, or like the outflow, the liters per hour, it mixes these nutrients and supplies to the nutrient chamber, which from which the plants are fed water and nutrients. So the various deficiencies would obviously show up, and based on that, one can always rectify it. Um, In case of nutrients, obviously, like, you'll face problems like when water is absorbed at a higher rate, say during summers or there's too much transpiration, then, the water is absorbed much quickly compared to the nutrients. So what you will have is like, increase in the density of nutrient in the system. So you need to like, replenish it with fresh water. And obviously, what we also recommend is that, whatever water you are using for agriculture should not have like a very high TDS level to begin with. I mean, in certain regions, the water level TDS is over 2000, and we don't even know what salts are in there. It could be having heavy metals, it could be having XYZ, but we are not aware of that. So we recommend using a filtration system for all agriculture or all irrigation related activities. So these are like, some sort of like protocols that you have to adopt in controlled environment agriculture or hydroponics. Because what we are trying to do is like, bring out more viability and reduce like the uncertainties in farming so that at the end of the day, the farmer is not incurring a loss. So these are like various issues that you might see. Like algae is one issue because in a nutrient solution, sunlight plus water will always give you algae. So once this algae comes inside the nutrient chamber, then it does not do any other harm. It is not toxic, but at the same time, it takes up a lot of oxygen for its own growth, which reduces the oxygen availability for the plants that are to be grown in hydroponics. So root death is again from like, high temperature problems is what we commonly encounter in North India. Uh, Other problems are not so common. pH related problem, pH fluctuates because as the plant takes up water, there will be some changes. So for balancing out pH or reducing the pH, because water that we generally use for agriculture is basic in nature, it has a pH of about 8.59. So what we do is we add either nitric acid or phosphoric acid. They're all food grade because nitrogen is also element or a primary nutrient that is taken up by the plants, and at the same time, phosphorus is also taken up by plants, and it is critical for root growth. Uh, then these are like issues that fruiting and flowering problems that happen in tomatoes or bell peppers or chilies and other crops that fruit and that flower and then fruit. So temperature, low light, mineral deficiencies, high CF level, and plant stress. As talked about, like, in case of soil, the plantation needs to be at a very large distance, or like you need to maintain, say, if I talk about a bell pepper plant, you need to maintain at least 12 inches to 16 inches between two crops. But in case of hydroponics, we can bring this down to 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches. This is primarily because the root zone is not competing with each other for uptake of nutrients and water. And water and nutrients is readily available in a hydroponic system, like a Dutch bucket system. So, these are like, certain tips that we, sort of like we also follow this, and whoever we train in hydroponics at our farm, we, sort of give them like a logbook to maintain. We need to have a EC meter and a pH meter, which is not very expensive and it is available online also. We give them, what sort of like, nutrients to use. There are certain brands that are giving you like what they are mentioning on the label. So we try to like, stick to um, good brands like IFCO or Yara when it comes to nutrients or salts that can be dissolved into your water. Um, and these are primarily like, these are very similar to like, something that you would follow in a regular farm. Um, just that you need to take care of like the parameters of your nutrient solution a little more. You need to be a little more careful around that aspect. So these are the benefits why we sort of switched from geoponic practices to hydroponic growing. Higher yields, water savings, quicker turnaround. It requires much less land. You can even go vertical in case of indoor farming. I'll show some pictures as well where we have like a three-level grow bed. Uh, so the produce is much cleaner and healthier. Like, you can be assured that, nothing gets sprayed on the top. Other than like hydrogen peroxide, which again is like, hydrogen and oxygen and does not have any toxic elements or any uh, long chain chemicals that are, used in insecticides or pesticides these days. Um, so this is basically like cost estimation for a 1,000 meter project size. How many plants you can grow? What would be the setup cost? What would be like the operational cost? So if we like split it like 1,000 square meter space, you can have about 28,000 plants, which is way higher than what you can have in like soil. You can use NFT system or you can use Dutch bucket system. Obviously, the plant capacity would vary based on that. Approximate costs, these are on the higher side. Like the cost of tech is going down every year, so these costs are also reducing. So for 1,000 square meter, like about 3,000 rupees per meter square meter is the cost of a fully automated high-tech polyhouse. And the farm setup, which includes your NFT, your pumps, your growing media, your stands, and like planning in terms of like the irrigation cycles and a PLC controller, like an electronic controller, which controls all parameters and does cyclical irrigation. So all of that brought together, like it's around a 40 lakh rupee investment. If you're talking about 1,000 square meter farm size. Uh, so these are the elements that I just spoke about, like in terms of the elements that would be used inside the to grow and to automate your farm. And this is like the yield that one can expect. All of these are or conditions. So like either you will do lettuce or you will do basil or strawberry or kale or cucumbers or cherry tomatoes or capsicums. So based on these number of planters and like an approximate number of cycles per year and harvest per plant, you can come to these numbers. These are like, your regular rates, not even like the rates that are available in the market, like they're like less than that. They're like pretty much like mandi rates. So, and these are the revenue numbers that you see from this. So, if you talk about like ROI, like you can expect your investment to be replenished in like 2 to 2.5 years. So, and these are like the operational costs. You need two people on the ground basically. Electricity will be lower in case of a naturally ventilated polyhouse for regions that are like, located about 900 feet from sea level. You would not have this element. You would have like a part of this element, but not 100% of this. Seed and media, obviously, you can also get it at a subsidized rate, but if you were to buy it, then these are like the monthly expenses that you really have to incur in terms of maintaining a controlled environment farm. In addition to this, I wanted to show you some pictures of how we. So this is the Italian basil that we have grown at our facility. Let me see that open them all together. I think this will not be the right way to do it. Show you on that. Just give me a minute.
Yes, sir, you're facing some issue.
I think like I opened them all together and instead of a slideshow sort of a thing, it is coming as an individual image or and it's coming out as an entity. So I close them all and then I start from the beginning. There's a lot of images, there's about 100 plus images in this. Okay, so this is indoor growing space with NFT channels. These are 100 mm by 50 mm channels. And if you can make out, like, this is the nutrient solution. It has a pump inside that sends water to the top layer, to each level basically from the rear side. And the channels are sloped towards the front, so once the water reaches there, it flows down here into this return channel and is sent back into the primary nutrient tank. And we have to monitor the EC levels and the pH level at of this particular tank. There's multiple grow beds and there's multiple tanks, which are like, basically, if you were growing a herb, you would require a little a different nutrition profile than if you were growing leafy green. So you can maintain different nutrition profiles in each tank and like grow different crops in a similar environment at the same time. So if I this is a picture of a aeroponic growing system. This is in our rooftop polyhouse. We have a polyhouse on our rooftop. It is about 90 square meter in area and has almost 6,000 planters. So that is all only possible because we're using like highly dense plantation. This is scale. So this scale would be about 1 week from germination. We just started this. I'll show some more pictures of this setup. Uh, this again is scale. So this is a 2 feet by 8 feet long growing system, and it has about one, two, three, four, five, six, and about 6 into 25 to 30 planters. So that's about 180 plants in a space of 2 feet by 8 feet. So that's pretty dense. And like you can see, like, the center to center distance between these two plants is somewhere around 2.5 to 3 inches. So the roots are hanging down. So the roots are not, sort of competing each other with regards to nutrients. Uh, take out some more pictures. So this is that aeroponic setup. So this box that you see, it's basically an insulated box, which keeps the root zone a little cool. These are your nutrient tanks. They're like, we put like a small air stone just to keep bubbling air inside this tank so that the oxygen levels are maintained. At the bottom, you would see these pipes going into the channel, into this box. So these pipes, they have nozzles at a distance of about 6 to 8 inches all along the grow bed. And once this motor is turned on, this is also connected to like a automatic controller. So every 10 seconds we turn on the pump, 10 minutes we turn the pump on for like say 20 to 30 seconds. So that is enough time for the roots to get wet. And for the next 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how the weather is outside, we either let the system, let the roots absorb the nutrients, or if we have a fear of like the roots getting dried out, then we recirculate this pump so that we power this pump on so that the roots are like kept wet at all times. Because once the roots dry out, the plant will die. So this is the complexity in maintaining an aeroponic system. It requires a little bit of monitoring, but then the results are really good. So like you've seen this picture, which is like at the time of plantation, and I'll also show you like how it looked like. This is like germination tray, and it's only coco peat that we use. We don't use any soil. So once the seed is germinated inside these trays, we pick it up as it is and place it in a net cup, which is a plastic net cup, 2 inches in diameter, and we place these net cups into the growing system directly, which is either your aeroponic growing system or your NFT growing system. So both of them have like similar sizes of the pots, so that it is like interchangeable between the two systems. So these are also 2 inch net pots. So I'll show you like how the finished product, how it looks like. This is another example of like a indoor growing space. This is also at our facility. So the bottom level is spinach, then it's Swiss chard, then spinach again. Then there's different colors of Swiss chard, yellow and red. And so you have about 576 plants in this one stand. So the room size for this is approximately 5 meter by 5 meter, which is 25 square meter, and we are doing about 1500 to 1800 plants in this space, and there's still a lot of space left. On the right, on these shells, we do the germination part. That's where we start the seeds. And after like about a week or 10 days, once the plant is like about 1 to 2 inches, we put it into these systems to grow fully. Um, for a aeroponic growing system, I showed you like when we planted it, and this is I think after 15 to 20 days of plantation. Uh, at the back, this is cooling pad. So you have fans on one end of the polyhouse and a cooling pad on the other end, the opposite end, and air is drawn from the cooling pad side of the polyhouse and drawn across the polyhouse so that the space between gets cool and is exhausted out from the other end. So show you a picture of that. Somewhere. So yeah, this is the opposite end of the polyhouse. So on one end you have cooling pads, and on the other end you have like these exhaust fans. And the crop that you see right here is Italian basil. And it's a very expensive commercial crop. Like it goes for about 600 rupees per kg in the market. And if you try to sell it directly into like a B2C channel, and the prices are even higher. And it is like a variety of basil, but primarily used in your Italian cuisine. So that's that. This is another aeroponic setup for growing tomatoes. So I'll show you also this. So these boxes that you see, these are like your aeroponic growing chambers that have nozzles inside. I also have a video of the how the nozzles work and everything. I'll show that too. So these are tomatoes growing. So this was leaf tomato. It's a variety of tomato, and like each plant gives you approximately 12 to 14 kgs per plant. So so on one side, we did lettuce and leafy greens, and on the other side, we did tomatoes. This is a 2000 square meter polyhouse. And you can see, like, the quality is impeccable. I mean, like, you won't see this kind of quality and cleanliness in a regular open field tomato farm. This is another setup we did. So these are the trellises for like the plants when they grow up. So on the left, you have nutrient film technique setup. So this is a warehouse which was converted into a growing space. So you have natural sunlight. You don't need like LED grow light or anything. And at the same time, you're using the benefits of like the covered space. So we have nutrient film technology and leafy greens on one side, and Dutch buckets, these are custom Dutch buckets with like a recirculatory system on the other side.
But it is over, sir, because we have completed on that.
Yep. So primarily these are like the various pictures that we have of the growing setup. I can share that with you if you want to like put it on the side or something. These are like automation systems that are deployed at the farm. So this is mainly four nutrients that are mixed in a particular concentration and they go into this nutrient tank. And from this tank, the water is circulated to all the plant stands. So and this again,
Okay.
indoor growing space. So this is the essence of what we primarily like, do in a commercial farm. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. These again are like tomatoes inside a polyhouse, and it's a grow bag methodology. There's no recirculation, but drip irrigation that is used for this. So depending on your budget and like the crop you want to grow, there's like a lot of customization that one can do to suit their requirements and take benefit of like a higher yield and lower crop cycle, smaller crop cycle.
So, is that over, sir? Shall I take up one or two questions?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
sure.
we are running short of time.
Right. Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
It stop sharing the screen, sir, so that we can see your
Mhm.
video also.
Yes.
Can you on the video, sir?
You need to. So, mm, the video is on.
And yeah, it is on. I don't know. Maybe it's not visible. That's okay, sir. I'll move on to the questions now.
Wait a second.
Okay. Shall I take up the questions, sir?
Yep, sure.
Okay. So what are the main challenges faced by CEA operators today?
See, the main challenges are earlier it used to be like there wasn't technology available to achieve what the farmers or scientists were trying to do. But now there's enough automation and IoT based sensors that are available to sort of help you in a controlled environment agriculture because the primary thing in CEA is monitoring. I mean, everything else is as is how you do it in geoponics or like soil based, but the added element of monitoring because you're trying to improve or increase the efficiency of your whole system. So the critical factor is the tech availability and implementation. So it used to be difficult back in 2018, but post COVID, I think people have started are are getting more inclined towards these technologies, and a lot of people are like doing the integration work that one needs to achieve this. Besides that, is trained manpower. So what who we primarily employ are basically agricultural graduates who've done like engineering in agriculture or agricultural sciences, BSc or engineering in agricultural sciences. We do take some MTech students who work with us on a project to project basis. So, say for example, if we are setting up a farm for a client in, say Jaipur or New Delhi area, then they work with us on a project to project basis sort of a thing in terms of like, ensuring everything is happening as planned. So that is the second challenge that we used to face is like trained manpower. Um, for the same reason, we have started conducting hydroponic workshops, and we even have started going out to farmers market and like sort of trying to educate people on the benefits of this. Uh, thirdly, what I feel is like the cost of our final produce in India is not as high. It is a very competitive market in terms of pricing. So, for example, I've stayed in Canada, US, and Singapore. So the prices there per kg would range somewhere between 350 to 450 per kg. And in India, the same crop would cost you like around 80 to 150 per kg. So the incentive for the farmer to adopt these methodologies is low. I mean, he does not have the cost to benefit ratio that he can possibly achieve in like a developed world. So these are like the primary three challenges that are there for any new farmer who's trying to get into this. First would be like trained manpower, then availability of technology, and third would be like the final cost of the produce is not as high as one would expect it to be.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. It was a wonderful presentation. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we like to thank Mr. Aditya Bhalla for the talk and for answering the question. This meeting will now be closed.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.